And this is Ken Kraetzer for CBSIServices, Talking Business. We're in New York today at the Direct Marketing Club of New York, a privacy summit hosted with Acxiom. And we've got Jordan Abbott of Acxiom and Fatemeh Khatibloo from Forrester and Sheila Colclasure from And good to see you all. Why don't we start with Jordan. Jordan, you come from a legal background in the field and in the Attorney General's office in Arkansas. Talked a lot about some of the keys. What should businesses be looking out for as far as regulations they need to comply with in the data field?
Well, I think it's absolutely imperative that businesses be looking at whether they are subject to the new California Consumer Privacy Act. That law comes into effect in January. It has a number of obligations for covered businesses, such as the obligation to provide access to consumers regarding the personal information they have about the consumer, to afford those consumers deletion of their personal information upon request, and afford them the opportunity to opt out. I think that's probably one of the big laws that businesses should be aware of right now.
Very good. And Fatemeh from Forrester, you came out with some points really on we all find so important listening to customers, asking customers what they want, what is important to them. You brought up the idea of focus groups, which we used to do. Tell us a little bit about how should a business who manages a lot of data, we're in the credit card field, listen to customers so that the data is used the way the customer wants?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to focus groups, we think a lot about preference centers and giving customers an opportunity to not just opt out of something, but opt down, make some context-based preferences. So not just like, don't ever send me another email again, but hey, limit the number of emails that you send me to once a month or once a week, and send me a digest of things. Send me contents about savings plans, not credit cards. So I think giving people the opportunity to assert and explicitly tell you what their preferences are, both digitally and in a focus group format that you can extrapolate out to the rest of your customers, that's the stuff that really matters today.
Okay, and Sheila Colclasure. Sheila, you talked early on about set a nice framework on best practices. Maybe you could give a quick summary of that on best practices for managing data.
Well, I think that is about what we're all focused on right now is managing data, governing it in a way that ensures we use it to serve people. And I'd say there's really 5 pieces. Number one, you have to have the commitment, and that goes to your intentionality, and you can articulate that in policy. Then you have to have data governance, operational processes to ensure that you are meeting your policy articulation. You have to have number 3, a meaningful way for individuals to participate. That goes to your transparency practices, choice, access, deletion, portability. Then you have to have number 4, monitoring and oversight. And number 5, you have to have demonstrability, and that's effective record keeping.
And Sheila, you mentioned in your comments you spent a lot of time in Washington talking to Congress and the administrative agencies, the regulatory agencies. The California Privacy Act, you mentioned, has kind of really become a benchmark. What are some of the keys in Washington for creating effective legislation? What do you think is going to happen?
I think there's a lot of interest and focus, more than I've ever seen before. But it is complex, and there's a lot of moving parts. I think the intention is everybody does want to both protect the consumer and protect the economy. So protect people, protect competition, but getting all of the pieces right and getting agreement and alignment between the parties, the administration in both houses is complex, and I think there's a lot of work towards making that happen.
Very good. And Fatemeh, you talked a little bit about how to positively use data to provide effective services to customers, provide the data and the information and the customer experience they want. Tell us about how data can positively use to provide a better customer experience.
Well, I think that's what we're all here for, right? And we're talking about the data that we collect about people, the data that we observe about people as a real means to personalizing and a real means to contextualizing and relevance, right? But it also means taking into consideration what the consumer expectation is. And that's the piece that we're missing today.
Okay, we're just going to have one last word from Jordan. You talked about the regulatory concerns. What's going to happen on the regulatory front about data, looking at Europe, looking at California and the other states?
Well, I think a number of states will look to pass some sort of CCPA-style legislation in their states. New York may be one. Washington may make another go at it. I also think, as Sheila does, that there will be a big push to draft and debate a national privacy law.
Jordan, thank you very much. All three of our speakers, thank you for joining us at the Direct Marketing Club of New York for our Privacy Summit. This is Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services in New York City.